important, just leave out half our audience. G'day to everyone who's just picked us up on YouTube. Macca forgot to press the button. I mean, I forgot to press the button.
I haven't got the bloody button.
Oh, we'll just wait for that to come online. Oh, Jesus, I tell you what, every week there's something. Never mind, there's just too many bloody buttons to press at the moment.
I was going to say, the fact that we actually started on time. Would anybody have actually gone on YouTube at 8:30? Because they always start about 5 minutes late, so it'd be fine.
Yeah.
That's right. Look, one thing that I did manage to do was a couple of intros. Didn't do your cockwomble, unfortunately, Nick, but...
I'm taking, if anybody wants to put it in the chat, I'm taking nominations for this week because I didn't get to watch everything. So
very good. And before we go on to the scores, don't forget, if you want to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/AFLCrowCast. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps us. We're inching our way up to 500, which is fantastic. If you're listening to us on YouTube, on iTunes, I should say, and you like what you hear, don't forget to give us a review because that helps as well. Oh, and if you haven't already joined Discord, for goodness sakes, get on board. We have a lively chat every game day, and it was a very lively chat on the weekend as the boys struggled a little bit. And the chat during the week is 24/7 chat basically, and the live studio audience on a Sunday and Tuesday night really kicks the show along and keeps us on the straight and narrow, doesn't it, Mac?
Oh, well, I am. I don't know about you guys.
Right. Without any further ado, let's kick it off with Macca's... Did the wrong bloody one. Oh, well. Never mind, Mac. I missed yours, but here we are. Macca's bloody... whatever it is. What is it?
Yeah, it's a match.
Macca's head-to-head stats.
Round up of all the matches.
All right. Look, let's get straight into it. Look, the first one, Carlton. Macca? Carlton.
Yeah, well, they really, it hurts to say it because they've always been just down there as a cellar dweller for years, but they really do look like they're going to be a big improver this year. And they've been pretty smart with their recruiting, really. They've really loaded up in the midfield. And your man Cripps, I said, you get one day 43, it doesn't make a summer. Well, he's had another hot one. So it looks like the guy is actually fit for the first time in 3 years, and he's actually playing like he used to 3 years ago.
Yeah, no, Macca, you didn't rate him, full stop. None of this now he's fit stuff. You did not rate him as a player, Macca.
I really haven't rated him for the last 2 years, mate, because you've been shit out. But that's a different story. Now he's fit, I have to re-rate him. But yeah, that's enough of him. But it's an interesting thing, though. English won the ruck, but the Blues mids, they were on top. Cripps, he was quite outstanding. Walsh was amazing that he came back from injury so quickly, but played so well.
Yeah. And he's a gun, Jamie Walsh.
He is. And Charlie Curnow, well, he's back and firing. He kicked 5 goals. He really had something when Mackay is quite dangerous on his own, but having Curnow there as well. I think they're in for a good season, and it really hurt for me. I cried a tear or two for Luke Beveridge with them losing. I did.
Yeah, I didn't think you would. 16-6-102 to 13-12-90 in the end by 12 points. And, they're looking good. I like the look of
They
it.
are. Yep.
Then we had the Swans in the Buddy Franklin game, 17-5-107 by 30 points over the Cats, 10-17-77. A good win by the Swannies, and thank God we've got the Buddy Franklin show over and done with.
Oh, I have to agree with that. It was a big newsworthy game for that reason. Buddy got his 4. Probably 10, 20,000 people ran onto the Oval, but in history there'll be about 100,000 who will claim that they did. But I love watching Sydney play. You never get a feeble effort from Sydney. They just
that's very true.
Very good team to watch. I mean, Heaney was quite outstanding. He got 4 goals and had 21 disposals to go with it. I mean, very nice recruit they picked up in Gildan last year. And the SA boy Stevens, he didn't play too badly either. Geelong never
played too bad.
Yep, and Geelong never looked like winning team. No. And I'll stick to what I said last week. They can't win the flag, but I must admit, I think they'll definitely play finals. How far they'll go, we'll wait and see. But I like their way they play.
Yep, and I know Sydney have had a leg up over the years with the academy and Kohler and all the rest of it. But if you want to study how to redevelop your list before your seniors drop off the cliff, then Sydney is the team to look at, because they've just grafted in some new talent really nicely, Macca. But they've still got their senior players that aren't in the retirement home yet. They're still able to contribute. So it's a really nice balance they've got at the moment.
Yep, exactly.
Then who else did we have? We had Brisbane, 15-7-97. Essendon, disappointing. I expected Essendon to give this a real shake, but 10-15-75 probably flattered them in the end, 22 points.
Well, it did, because Essendon actually had 25 shots to goal versus the 22 that Brisbane had. So, and a lot of those were very, very kickable as well. So if they'd kicked them, it would have been a very tight game. But that poor kicking for goal cost them any chance they had. Lockie Neal was right back to his very best. He had 41 possessions. And Lorco was immune, quite frankly. He was on one leg, so they put him on a half-back flank. He got 33 possessions there. Sadly, Merritt, who was playing very, very well for us, and he went down. He looks like he's going to be out for about 8 weeks or so. So there was nothing much in it for us at the end of the game. I thought they blew what chances they had, and now they've lost one of their very best players. So one good thing, 3 metre Peter actually played like he was interested for a change, and he kicked 3 goals. But no, just overall, I think Brisbane, because they are a better side overall, and they just always looked like they were going to win.
Macca, you watched, because I watched Essendon last week as well, and I caught a bit of this game too after as, and it's just like, I really don't rate Essendon. I think there's definitely some problems going on there.
No. I don't think they're finishing the 8. I don't think so. They've got some nice players, but it's not gelling. Yeah, they're not a complete team.
No, they're not a complete team, but I wouldn't write them off. On their day, they can be very damaging. They can score very quickly, Essendon. And sides like that are always dangerous.
Yeah, dangerous on a day thing, but not dangerous for the whole year.
No, that's true. They need more consistency. All right, probably my favourite game of the round.
Yes.
Delightful.
What a thumping. And, we spoke, I think it was last week, about Port maybe having trouble getting score on the board, and it panned out that way. Hawthorn 19-6-120. Power 7-14-56, just a lazy 64 points to the Hawks.
That was an absolute disgraceful effort by Port Adelaide. Disgraceful. There's only words you could say. It was like Adelaide at our worst. But
it was belting.
They were pathetic.
Absolute belting.
I mean, they really did a disservice to the memory of Russ Leavitt with such a pathetic performance. Both Butters, I thought, were outstanding. I mean, they played their arse off.
Russell Leavitt never played for the Power. He played for a different Port Adelaide team.
Look, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that whole thing. But they were carrying on about it, so we can't just mention it. But I thought Hawthorn were a complete team effort, actually. And very, very good example, Fiend, once again, of blending youngsters into players that aren't past their prime. So they actually drafted 2 pure midfielders in, I think it was Wood and McDonald, and one got 20 possessions and one got 18 possessions, and really looked like they're going to be very good mids. So, good drafting by Hawthorn. I thought overall Port were undermanned with a loss of some key injuries, but they won't tell us how good they are, so they can't really use that as an excuse.
No, they're at home. Hawthorn.
Hawthorn are a lot better than most people think, Fane. They've actually, in their last 6 games, counting the end of last year and the beginning of this year, they've won 5 and 1 draw in the 6 games. So, really, they weren't as poor as people were saying they were going to be. Some people had them, predicting they were going to be bottom. Well, there really was not much basis for that. And I think they look, it's overall, it's their youngest side, anyhow, since 2005. But I think they'll win quite a few games this year. They won't be anywhere near the bottom.
Another study in development, Mac, was if you had a look at their CBAs, they certainly, their centre bounce attendances, they're not afraid to chuck young kids in the rotation. I think their second year bloke was at Ward, attended 16 or 17 centre square bounces, and they are not afraid. Whereas apart from Harry Schomburg, and we'll get into this later, but we really had a four-player rotation in the midfield, whereas they probably had half a dozen, if not more, and a lot of them were young lads. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100% spot on, and I'll still stick with what I say about Port. They won't win the flag.
Not on that performance, that's for sure. All right, Melbourne getting over a tenacious Suns. Melbourne 12-10-82, the Suns 10-9-69.
Yeah, I think we can just sum that one up by saying it was a brave effort by the Swans. Only got beaten by 30. Yeah, so by the Suns, sorry, yeah, not the Swans. But the class of Melbourne told overall. They've got Oliver, they've got Petrarca, they've got Jackson. Gold Coast had Toot Miller and not too many others. But overall, they tried extremely hard. It was just, well, they were missing up forward. They didn't have King, they didn't have Rankin, so they really didn't have much up forward. In fact, they had North Coasters playing up there, up full forward.
Yeah.
And Melbourne, they've got a beautiful young lad in Bowie off half back. He had an outstanding game. So overall, Melbourne, they're chugging along very nicely, and I think Gold Coast, they'll win a few games for the year.
Yeah, but it's beyond that now for Gold Coast. Their list is maturing, and it's all right. And they do it every year, as Rabbit said in the chat. They look good early, get a couple of wins or some good performances on the board, and then they tail off. They cannot afford to do that this year. They have to be knocking on the door to the 8 this year, Macca. I'm not saying they will, but they have to be.
And now I mentioned Lukosius, and everybody's saying at the end of the year there'll be a duel between Adelaide and Port Adelaide to try and get him. But on what I'm watching, I don't see much there worth chasing.
Oh, my mail is he's locked and loaded at Port. Probably won't even consider Adelaide.
Fair enough. But I don't, at the moment his form's not that good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's playing in a new role. I mean, they played him off halfback all last year. This is his second crack at it. And to be honest with you, he wasn't, when they decided to do that, he wasn't going to be their main focal point. But of course, with the King boy going down, that's changed things. I don't think Luco's equipped to be the primary target. So I'm not surprised that he's struggling a little bit. Anyway.
And look, our first round of next year has got to, at the end of this season, it's got to be dedicated to a pure midfielder.
We'll get to that. North Melbourne 10-14-74 defeated a very depleted West Coast Eagles, who did reasonably well under the circumstances. 8-11-59 by 15 points.
Got 14 changes at West Coast from last week.
Just horrific.
Low standard scrambling game. All credit to the people that represented West Coast in their Guernsey. They fought their guts out. They when the ball was in tight, they did well. Once going out in the open, they were a little bit outclassed. But and they were playing North Melbourne, who I don't think are going to be any really up there. But I'm not sure whether I should give credit to North Melbourne. I should give credit to West Coast for their effort. Probably the latter.
I think West Coast did well to turn it into a scrap. because that was the only way they were going to have a crack, is by turning it into a scrap. They put a lot of pressure on North Melbourne. Both sides made a lot of skill errors and overused the ball at times, and it wasn't a very good standard game. But that's what West Coast had to do. They had to make it a low-scoring affair and hope that they could jag it in the end. They fell short, but like you said, well done to everyone who rocked up for West Coast.
Yep.
Oh, this is the game that got me in tipping, because I tipped the Giants, particularly with Dusty out, but they just never looked like it. Richmond 16-13, 109 by 6 goals in the end against the Giants 10-13, 73. Terribly disappointing by the Giants, I would have thought.
Massively disappointing thing, massively. When they look at the talent they've got in their side, it's basically, it's mainly in a clump, really. They've got a supreme midfield, absolute supreme midfield.
Yeah.
So when you get into the back lines, they've got a reasonable back line. When you get in the forward line, they've got a reasonable forward line, but they're not outstanding. So they're outstanding areas of the midfield. And I don't like the style of game they play. Too much chippy. They love chipping the ball around, and they cross back into the middle too often and lose possession. The opposition goes down and gets goals. For the talent they've got in the midfield, they should be doing better. It should be like a dominant and going right down one end all the time. But no, look, you're right. They were extremely disappointing. I thought they'd beat Richmond and beat them easily. But having said that, full credit to Richmond, who Curtis actually dominated in the ruck. He didn't have much opposition there. And Short's run from defence was absolutely outstanding. And he actually got the whole side mobile, and they were just too good.
I agree with you about Giants' style of play. I don't think they actually play to their strengths, to be honest with you, Macca. That midfield should be able to steamroll sides. But they allowed teams to stay in the game by just slowing the game right down. And to me, it should be a blitzkrieg by that midfield. I'm
100%, and that's the way I see it too, 100%.
Yeah, I've never rated Cameron as a coach. I don't know why he was extended last time, but I don't think he's moving that club forward anymore. And they've almost missed the boat with this talent school, and then they've just got to fight with the rest of the pack, as their concessions dry up and their concessional picks dry up. So, disappointing. And the Dockers, what's going on with the Dockers and the Saints? Let me just check in to see if I can find a score. Have you got a score, mate? Do you know what's going on there?
Yeah. So I kind of gave up at about half time because I'm like, this is a horrible game. Freo in front. St Kilda should be kicking. And ended up that St Kilda actually won 65-55.
I gave it half time too. I was sick of it. I wasn't very interested in the game, so I did stop watching it at half time. I picked it up in the last 5 minutes of the game, and when Fremantle were behind and they got within, somebody saying at 10 points, I knew it was between 1 and 2 goals, but not a great standard game. St Kilda were very happy to get a win over there because they hadn't won over there for umpteen years, apparently.
That's horrific by Fremantle. That is terrible. St Kilda were an absolute rabble last week against Collingwood. And Fremantle, for the large part of the game, absolutely outclassed Adelaide. There's no way they should have lost that game. Fremantle fly under the radar a lot, in my opinion, but there's got to be some scrutiny on that club. Apart from a couple of years, they have not even looked like it. And I don't know how they keep flying under the radar. I know they've got a new coach and, he's in his second year and all the rest of it. But that club talk about cultural issues. That club has got some major cultural issues when it comes to being tough and winning games that have to be won. And this is a game they just had to win.
Well, it's a game that I think a lot of people thought they could win. But no, not to be. Brayshaw was quite outstanding, and he had a couple of helpers, but there were a lot of players that, somebody mentioned that they had no forward line. That's quite right. They kept driving in there, but not scoring.
But up to half time, though, St Kilda was getting it in as well. They just weren't kind of making the most of their opportunities that they had too, which is why it kind of got me frustrated. I'm like, I'm going to go do other stuff before getting ready for podcast. I just think Freo play well in patches, and that's their problem. Is they're kind of they're a bit of that surge team. They'll do that and they'll play well. They look great, beautiful ball movement, and then it disappears.
Agree, Nikki. Agree 100%. They don't play sustainable footy, and they don't seem to be able to concentrate for 4 quarters. And it's as I said, it's another team that really needs to have a bit of the blowtorch put on them, along with the Suns. They've been in the competition a long time now.
Yeah, that's true. In middle, they've got a couple of good players out at the moment, but no, look, they played. They didn't have those players against us. I think they had Monday, but
yeah, they had Monday.
But no, they. I thought at half time they'd probably go and win the game, but no, they didn't turn up after.
And that's the thing. At home, it's a shocker, that one. Let's look at the ladder real quick. It doesn't include that result, so it's a little bit different. Hawthorn, Collingwood, St Kilda, Melbourne, Brisbane, Carlton, all undefeated. Then we have Geelong and Gold Coast in the 8, followed by Richmond, Fremantle, North Melbourne and St Kilda now also on 1 win. And then the Bulldogs are yet to open their account. West Coast, Adelaide, the Giants also yet to open their account. Essendon and Port Adelaide. So, Port down the bottom's a good time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Port down the bottom's a good time.
That was also going to be possibly my cockwobble, because who would have actually predicted that the second game into this round, that Adelaide would be ahead of Port, with neither side winning a game yet.
Yeah. Interesting. Early on, it looks like Melbourne's premiership to lose again. Wouldn't you love to be blessed with that powerful midfield? I mean, Petrarca would have to be on 6 points for the Brownlow. And he's just an absolute animal at the moment. He's playing like Michael Voss used to play, in my opinion. Absolutely full confidence in his ability. Fears no one, and runs in straight lines. He's an absolute champ.
No, he's an absolute ripper, and and when you got somebody of Oliver's caliber being put into the background, it shows how good they are. I mean, Petrarca's just one of the classiest players. It's interesting because he was a high draft pick number. I think he was number 1 in his year, and he sort of didn't really click in the sense he played all right, but not outstandingly. But about 3 years ago, I think it was, that he decided, I'm going to really put my mind to it. And by God, has he ever?
Well, he credits Darren Burgess with taking him to the next level, getting his body right and getting his fitness up there. Clayton Oliver, first picked in any other side in the competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even a question. So, anyway. All right, let's move on to the Adelaide game. And it was very disappointing, Nikki and Macca, in my opinion. 8-10, 58 to 15-10, 100. Going down in the end by 42 points. It possibly could have been a little bit more. My first comments are we played a strange game style for the first half. We didn't look organised, and we didn't have the cattle.
Well, certainly we weren't organised. I couldn't work out what type of game plan we were trying to play, Pete.
It looked like we were trying to chip it around and slow it down, but we just played straight into Collingwood's hands. So I don't know which Collingwood Matthew Nicks has been watching. But you don't want to be kicking it up and down the lines and letting Collingwood get behind the ball like that. It's ridiculous.
And also, you don't want to be doing that kind of game style when our players cannot kick to each other properly.
Well, there's only a couple of players that do hit targets. I mean, you'd love to have the ball in Dawson's possession every time. He's a beautiful kick, that guy. But yeah, a lot of our guys, I just couldn't hit the side of a barn door, I reckon. But I thought we had a lot of players that didn't give 100. Well, they probably did give 100%, but they were maybe they haven't got much to give because it was just horrible to watch. The whole thing was horrible. And we just never, ever looked like we were going to win. I thought we were just ordinary all day. Yeah. And there wasn't much good to take out. There were probably about 2 or 3 good things to take out the game. The rest of it says to us we could easily be number 18 at the end of the season again.
Certainly at this stage it's projecting that way, Mako. I don't see... you could probably make a case for St Kilda, although their win today shows that they're not as bad as they were the previous week. I don't think we're quite as bad as we have been the last couple of weeks either. But there's a couple of players. I really think. I mean, at the beginning of the year, there were murmurings and whisperings and a few comments to suggest that the club felt that they had a list assembled that pretty much was the build that they were looking for. Yep. Sloaney came out and said, the time for building is over and the time for, results is here, etc., etc. And there's a few players that are getting games at the moment that I don't think deserve to be getting games, and we'll go through those in a little while when we look at individuals. But selection really confuses me. I don't know why you drop Riley Thilthorpe and retain Elliot Himmelberg. I don't know why you play Luke Pedlar in a forward pocket all day. I don't know why you allow Matty Crouch and Rory Sloane to attend 90% of the centre bounces for the day. There's just a lot of things around selection and the makeup of the team at the moment that just really confuse me. I can't work out what match committee are trying to achieve.
Well, I 100% agree with everything you said. Just on Thilthorpe, is it correct that he didn't, not only was he dropped, but that he didn't actually play in the SANFL team as well? Is that correct?
I'm not sure, Macca, to be honest with you.
I read that somewhere, and I just thought somebody out there might know whether he did actually play in the sample. He did play.
1990 says he played.
Okay, that's good. Thanks for that, because somebody on Twitter said he never even played, but perhaps he didn't go any good. I don't know. But you're quite right. The other thing about Pedlar too, I mean, Pedlar was that's ludicrous. He's a midfielder, and he's stuck in a forward pocket out of the play, not given no opportunity whatsoever to show his potential as a midfielder. That was just stupid. Cook at least was given a wing position, and to me, he showed us because I think all of us have been saying, give Cook a chance because you can see something there. He has got something, and I thought he did a good job. When this is probably his 4th game of football, and at that level, and I think he's going to be a good player in the long run.
Agreed. Nick, any thoughts there?
No, I was just checking the report for the SANFL game. It's interesting. We did an absolute belting of Port, and yet the goal kickers, Thilthorpe, not showing up there at all. I like you guys. I'm just completely and utterly baffled by what's happening with that midfield. The fact that for 2 years it's been clearly identified that's our problem, and that they're still doing the same thing there just drives me insane.
I don't understand, Nikki, how you can give Samberry 20 games the previous season and then he's not even figuring in dispatches when it comes to team selection this year. Now, whether there's a fitness issue that he needs to be working on, whether he's a little bit... we've heard nothing about him. Nothing about him. And it seems to me, as soon as Matt Crouch got fit, that was Samberry out of the team. You know, I've mentioned Luke Pedlar. Luke Pedlar tears it up in the SANFL in round one. He gets a bag full of touches. Clearly running on top of the ground. He's fit. He looks good. He looked good in the moments that he was in the contest on the weekend. But a forward pocket or, you know, a small forward position, I don't understand. I just don't understand.
I think I'm trying to remember who it was in the chat, on the game day chat in the Discord on Saturday, made the comment that Matt Crouch does not hurt any team in the AFL, which I did counter with he does. He does. He hurts one team. He hurts Adelaide. Yeah, and you contrast it with what actually happened in that last quarter, where they started throwing things around, and who did they actually start in the centre in the last quarter? Rochelle.
Yeah. Well,
and how good did he look?
Had a good last quarter.
Yep, he had a good last quarter. We actually got some really nice ball movement going on. And yes, players got tired and there was some interesting disposals and things like that happening. But there was better movement happening, which the commentators were then going down to, they're all tired so they can't keep up. Well, no, we actually started moving the ball quickly out of our backlines and with some intent. And it was Rochelle all the time who was doing so. So if he doesn't actually start in the midfield on Friday night, and if we start with those 3 slow plotters, which I'm okay with one of them, but the other 2 should never be seen in that midfield ever again. Ever. No. Done. Dusted.
So who are you actually going to start with, Nick?
Quite honestly, I actually think, yes, I'm happy with Keys in there.
Yeah.
Because even though, yes, he is not an A-grade midfielder or whatever, but we know what we're going to get from him, and we actually know he's going to contribute proactively. And he's going to make mistakes, but that's fine, because we know that that's his standard and that's his level out. I would actually, I know Schoenberg is still, there's something going on with him, but I still want to try.
He's getting the ball. He's burning it at the moment. He's getting enough of it.
Yeah, he's burning it. He's getting enough of it. So I would actually like, and Rochelle, actually, as the starting mid, I would like those 3. And then I would like Pedler, Berry back in the side, because we need that kind of grunt. So if you take Keys out, you put Berry in. I think that's a beautiful swap.
Well, someone's got to come in for Sloan, because it looks like he's not going to come up. You would think. I think a groin.
No, they made the excuse of, we only took him off because we didn't want him to get injured at all.
No, he had an adductor. He had a strained adductor.
Yeah, what?
No, they told the Fox person that it was only very slight. It was adductor, and they've taken him off as a matter of precaution, so he's ready for next week.
So just as an aside, what the hell happened to the Medisub rule? Because as far as I can tell, the Medisub rule didn't allow that.
I know.
And it's being absolutely abused at the moment, and the AFL are just turning a blind eye. Look, I agree with you, Nick.
Sorry, well, why do you say that it doesn't allow that, mate?
Well, initially when the Medisub rule was brought in, it was supposed to be for injuries that and the player was not supposed to be able to play the next week initially. Now it's just basically a sub rule. It's basically an interchange. Like a sub.
Yeah, and they would argue that it's precautionary to prevent an injury. But I agree with you. They just might as well make just a 5th interchange loan and be done with it.
Making a mockery of it. Look, I agree with you, Nick. For all Crouch's faults, I'm still happy to have him as a cold-faced mid. I think he doesn't hurt the opposition, Macca. His first disposal against Collingwood said it all, where he just looped a handball to the feet of the guy running off half back.
Beauty, wasn't it?
Oh, it was an absolute shocker, and it didn't get a hell of a lot better. He doesn't hurt the ball, the opposition with disposal. He doesn't gain any meterage. Yes, he's in a lot of strings of play, but they're usually dinky handballs or just basically gives that aren't what I'd call creative. But I'm happy to burn him as a coalface mid. You'll notice the difference between Matty Crouch and someone like Patrick Cripps or Christian Petrarca is that when how many centre clearances did Cripps get on the weekend where he hit the ball at 100 miles an hour? He was the only time he was in the right place, Macca, was the moment the ball got there. Whereas Matty Crouch sets up his little camp chair and he's stationary every time. There's no dynamic movement about Crouch.
Or he's actually hanging on to the midfielder he's opposed to because they're quicker.
Yeah.
There's a basic problem, is that with the situation, what you said about Fritz was 100% right. He was taking the ball full-chested and running it flat out. With the way that Rob rucks, where would you run to? That's the problem.
But you've got more than one midfielder, Macca. This is the thing. And,
movement should be dynamic, that you actually have more than one kind of runner happening.
I think Riley O'Brien's fairly predictable, actually. He either gets it and it goes to his feet or he loses it. So, and Crouch invariably is at O'Brien's feet. The problem is that he's been there for 20 minutes and every man and his dog knows he's there, and as soon as he touches the ball, he just gets swamped.
Are the marshmallows done yet?
Which is why we rarely get clean takeaway from the middle. Whereas a good midfielder, as you well know, Mac, will hit the ball. The only time he'll be at that spot will be the moment the ball gets there.
Oh, absolutely. And but I'd hate to be trying to do it with O'Brien, because you actually need a ruckman that can actually.
I think that's a cop out because there aren't many ruckmen in the league that will clean tap every tap. I think it's a cop out, Macca.
The best midfields read the tap off the ruckman regardless who is doing the tap.
Yes, and what they do is they usually have the ones with a little bit of toe, and they stand back. They don't stand right in the ring real close. They stand back probably another 2 or 3 metres back behind, so they can actually pick up that momentum. And
that's right.
It also gives them the opportunity to work out where the ball's actually going. It's probably intended to go one side, but if it goes to the other side, it still gives them an opportunity to get there. So they don't set up for it for a start.
Well, the reason why Crouch camps is because if he wanted to start a little bit off the contest, he'd get beaten to it every time. He has to camp there in order to get first possession. There's no other way he wins first possession because he hasn't got the quick step to do that. So, but all that aside, I'm happy to have Crouch in there. The one that I'm not happy to have is Rory Sloane. Rory Sloane got burnt off by their bloody ruckman at one stage, and not that Brodie Grundy's a slow play, but he's a bloody ruckman, and so you can just tell that Sloaney does not have it anymore in the legs to be that midfielder. He's got some good attributes that we can utilise in the side. I don't think he's I don't see a lot of sign of his leadership, to be perfectly honest with you. I
was going to say there was a moment of absolute desperation from Duday, where he got the ball, but then there was that turnover, and his desperation to fix it and make sure that wasn't going to happen again, or that they couldn't actually take an advantage of it for Collingwood. And you could kind of see that the way that backline lifted, and we had a good about 5 minutes of run of play after that. To me, that's that. Why isn't Duday our captain yet? And he should be our captain.
Well, I think, I don't like to speak ill of Rory because he's been a great servant of the club. But it can't be another situation that we had with Scotty Thompson, where if he played, it was in one position. Rory Sloane has to recognise that he is just not cutting it in the midfield anymore. He's not, you could probably give him a secondary rotation through there, but he cannot line up through there. It's hurting our development, and we're getting absolutely slaughtered. 2 games in a row now, we've been absolutely poleaxed around contest. Whether it be centre bounce attendances or around the ground. When we do win a clearance, it's not clean. It's not decisive. It's always out the back to the defensive side, and then it's always a slow switch. It's very, very predictable. There are no breaking lines. There are no cutting through the corridor. There's nothing like that. It's very predictable. And the reason for that is because they don't have the toe to be able to do it. Harry Schomburg's not a fast player. He's not slow, but he's not like, he takes a little bit to get going. So he's not going to provide you with that pace. Luke Pedlar actually has a good first half a dozen steps. He can create some separation. Benny Keys can create some separation. They're the players that we need to have in this mix. And at the I feel like until we sort this midfield out, we're going nowhere. We're just wasting time, in my opinion.
Well, you're 100% right. It's I don't know. It's nobody. There's nobody else that's got a midfield like it. Actually, so it's just just get three slow blokes and put them together in the middle. But they'll fight for the ball, and I think that probably, I haven't looked at the stats, but I think you'll probably find that we actually probably got our share out of the midfield, and we probably around the clearances we probably got our share as well. But it's just that we don't get them out very well because we're not taking them out at pace, just as you were saying.
That's right. Always goes out the back to the defensive side.
Yep, and it's just being taken out under pressure rather than being able to doing bursting through and then getting it right into the danger area so quickly they haven't got time to set up. Yep. So we don't have that type of play, I was very angry to see Luke Pedlar just sitting in that forward pocket and really out of the game most of it.
It's just such a waste of a player.
Yeah, and they'll say, gee, he didn't do much. He only had a few possessions. Well, poor bugger never had many opportunities to. And Cook, I thought, Cook was given an opportunity to show that he's got some ability, and he did that. And Pedlar should have been given that same opportunity. We're not going to win a flag this year. So
no.
Well, and the argument is, Macca, that you can't play a team full of kids. And in principle, I agree with that. We've talked about teams like Sydney and Hawthorn that have a really nice blend. But the problem that we've got is that we've overrated senior players for so long that we have backed them in until they've gone off a cliff. Now, there aren't many senior players on our list at the moment who would be picked by any other side in the competition. I don't even think Rory Sloane would attract much attention anymore. Matty Crouch didn't attract attention during the last trade period. So the senior players that we do have aren't capable of supporting the younger lads that are coming through. And so whilst I agree in principle that we can't play all the kids, to be perfectly honest with you, mate, I think it's getting to the point where we don't have any choice.
Well, we haven't got much to lose because we're losing playing without the other players anyhow, and you have to think of the future. And for example, Pedlar should be being developed as a midfielder, and you can't do that from a forward pocket and not getting a run. That's ridiculous. Whereas we've got the same old regulars in there, and as I said, they probably got their share out there, but in the future, I think what did Crouch average per disposal? About 2 metres or 3 metres or something like that.
Yeah,
something
I think
silly.
for the season, I think he's averaged 6 metres a disposal.
Yeah, that's not really going to get you very far, and it's very hard to structure up a game plan around that. So you're right. I think you do have to have a core of some senior players, but when in doubt, then I think you give if you think the player has got the ability to develop, then you put him in there to do that.
Yeah. All right, let's look at some head-to-head stats, and then we might talk about that a little bit more as we're going through individual stats. I've already talked about the lineup, so I won't worry about that again. So disposals are relatively even, 384 to 389. We kicked it more than they did. They had a nice even spread, kicked a handball. Inside 50s were relatively even, 54 to 51. Disposal efficiency was relatively even. Efficiency in inside 50 was where we fell down a bit because we certainly didn't have any method going into the forward 50, and we didn't have a lot of targets presenting up either on the weekend. Contested possession, pretty even. Uncontested possession, we had a fair bit of it out the back, so we had a little bit more uncontested posies. We did burn it a bit, slightly more turnovers than Collingwood. Free kicks, I'm not bagging the umpires this year, but I tell you what, they certainly tested me out. They tested me out on the weekend. Bloody hell.
Oh.
I'm not talking about it.
Yeah, you have to bag. They cheated.
No, not this year, not doing it. But they certainly pushed the friendship. Stoppage, hit-outs were even, 33-30. Clearances, we won fairly convincingly. But what happens with Collingwood, ever since Nathan Buckley worked out Brenton Sanderson all those years ago, they just don't commit to the contest. So we might get first touch out of clearance, but how many times do we get shut down on the second and third ball?
Well, it depends. Yeah, well, the way the ball's been delivered after that first clearance, it's anybody's ball anyhow.
Exactly. It's not a decisive clearance. It's just a stat. Centre clearances were even. Stoppage, we won by about 6. Round the ground, 102-72 marks, just shows that chippy style that we were trying to play, particularly in the first half. Marks inside 50 were even, 9-8. Contested marks 3-2. For all that, tackles 61-53. Tackles inside 50, we did all right, 11-16. That's the head-to-head. It doesn't really tell us much other than we were inefficient with the ball.
That's all it tells you. We actually held our own in every stat, but got trounced. So, it just tells you that we didn't use the ball very well. It has to be that.
Well, it shows you that our method wasn't there, Mac, doesn't it? I mean, if you're winning, who was the other team that won on the weekend and got absolutely trounced in stats? I can't remember.
Yeah, there was another match where they actually. I can't remember the other match where they did win the stats, but they lost the game.
Yeah, might have been the Essendon game actually. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Port Adelaide.
No, they didn't win stats. That was shit.
They won every stat. Port won every stat.
Did they? That's hilarious. It makes me feel mildly better. Look, it just shows that we're inefficient with the ball, and I don't know why Matthew Nicks went in with a game plan of trying to maintain possession and slow the game down. Is that just a concession that we're not quick enough, Macca? Is that the concession that he's making?
I don't know what his concession is, because I don't know why we're playing like we are.
That's not a concession. That's a fact.
Well, yeah, actually, but I don't know why we are though, Nicky. Do you?
Why we're not fast? Because
why we're playing the way we move the ball around.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We keep moving around.
No idea.
We keep, instead of, sometimes when you've got an opportunity, when you've got forwards like maybe they haven't had time to get back, and you've got maybe two of each team in the forward line, that's the time to get in there as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
But, that's like a chaos ball to a defender. They hate it. But we don't. We will just fiddle around and give everybody time to get back.
And that's what drives me insane, and it does a massive disservice to those poor forwards who are young guys who are still trying to learn their craft and learn how to work with each other and learn their movement. And we've got some guys down there that actually do good movement and actually keep out of each other's way, but it relies on the ball actually being moved quickly, and we have for the past, 5 years or so, had a midfield that refuses to move quickly. The only time the ball goes fast to the forward line is either when the forwards are doing it because they're pushed up high enough, but then we don't have enough forwards because they're the ones that are actually putting it, or our defenders are the ones actually doing the fast movement. And midfield, it always comes to me, it always comes back to me that our midfield is what slows us up every single time. And I think that our game plan is just based around the fact that we've got a slow midfield and this is the way they play, except for the fact that the AFL for the past 3 seasons has moved past that type of midfield. Nobody has, as you said earlier, nobody has a midfield like ours anymore, a starting midfield. Nobody does. So why are we still the only team left with it? We've got some really nice young players who can make a really good fist of it, but they're not being given the opportunity, and it's just driving me mad at the moment because I'm feeling for them.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nicky, because, I mean, it is a terribly old, not old, but it's a staid midfield that, we mentioned like Crouch, Ben Keys, who I've got nothing but the utmost admiration for, and I wish every player put in as much as Ben did into the game. But, he's not polished, and therefore, he's not going to come bursting out like Dawson and go whack onto your chest. But I can forgive him because of the fact that he worked so hard, and and same with Lairdy, it's very much the same. But
the thing is, Macca, the thing is, we don't know, because when he does get the ball out of stoppage, there's no one leading up. Like, we don't actually know. I mean, yes, Benny Keys, his disposal is questionable, but he went at 81% on the weekend, 37 touches at 81%.
Look, I
can't do better than that.
I love the guy. I think he's a great get. It's pretty sad when
What I'm saying, mate, is that I think it's a bit of a furphy to say that he can't hit anyone on the chest. His disposal efficiency was 81.1% from 37 touches on the weekend, and that includes 21 kicks.
No, I'm not knocking Keys. I've been praising him, but the point I'm trying to make is this: it's a sad case of affairs when your best midfielder is somebody who's delisted from another club, and we've got all these draft picks, and we can't even draft a midfielder.
Well, that's right. He's gonna win 2 gold jackets, Ben Keys, with us at least.
Yep.
And he was a cast off from another team, and to me at the moment, because the young lads aren't getting enough of an opportunity to actually put their case, apart from a couple, Harry and Geordie Butts and a couple, he'll win it again, and it's just an indictment on our list. And that's nothing against Ben Keys, because he's made every post a winner. And yes, you can make a case for the fact that Brisbane midfield lineup was very, very talented and tough for a bloke who had some limitations to break into. But how many first round draft picks have we had in the last 3 or 4 years? We should have a couple of quality midfielders in there that enables Ben to be a sidekick, not the made player.
Yeah. Well, we burnt 3. Totally burnt them. I mean, Fisher, burnt. Jones, burnt. McHenry, burnt. I mean, I'm not saying that Jones and McHenry can't play at all, but they're not first rounders. And Fisher, he can't even get in the side after but he's been there. This is his second or third year with us. Third, I think.
The Mackesy one, I think it started with the Gallucci one. To be honest with you, I think Gallucci was a strange pick. Chase was projected to be top 12. We picked him at 6. Was it 6 or 9? Anyway, top 10.
6. 6.
It's about 2'8", and let's be honest, the form line was Tasmanian form line, and nothing against Tasmania, but is it as strong as Victoria, South Australia, West Australia? Probably not.
And Jones, no, he was 9. No. There were so many other opportunities we could have taken, but
and then Mackesy. Mackesy was a knee-jerk reaction on the basis of Daniel Talia going down.
Yeah,
it was a knee-jerk reaction, and that is the one. That is the killer, because there are plenty of players around Fish. at that stage. And yes, he was touted as the best defender in the draft at that stage. But by goodness me, to drop pick 6 on Fisher Mackesy on a KPD that had some development left to go, when we're in dire need of midfield players, having burned a couple, blows my mind, that one.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous, and really one of the reasons that, the main reason we're in the situation that we are is because we have burnt. Somebody's listened here: 6 Mackesy, Jones 9, Fogg 12, McHenry 16, and you put all those players together there, and you try and trade them, you'd be lucky to get a second round of the lot.
Yeah, at the moment, our main midfield hope is a lad we picked up in the 30s, Harry Scheinberg.
Yeah,
not a first round pick, not a first round pick, not even close. And therein lies the problem, Macca, and this is why I've gone from being quite bullish at the beginning of the year to actually having a slightly different perspective, because the problem that we've got is that we have a mass, and we've identified this before when we've done draft specials and looked at the list and done some list analysis. The chasm that we've got in the 23 to 26 year age group is just absolutely telling, and that's exactly where those draft picks sit, in that early to mid 20s. So our senior players are all pushing 30 or over 30, and our younger players are sort of around the 20 mark. We've got no one in that 25 mark. Getting Geordie Dawson in that age group was excellent, because we certainly needed him, and we need a few more. But that's the reason why we've got so many problems, so many issues with our senior players, because they've already fallen off the cliff.
Yeah, well, anyway. As I said, that's our priority next year. Just whether it's some a mid from another team that's as we did with Dawson, or whatever. But it's got to be a midfielder.
Who, Mac?
Midpun?
Who?
Oh, it might be. I mean, maybe straight out the draft, but well, Dunkley, for example, is a player that has been rumoured. And I think he's not
a chance to come to Adelaide.
He's got his wife is from South Australia and wants to come home. And in fact, I think she's playing for the local basketball team here. And
right. Anyway, let's that's another podcast. Let's move on. So player stats, Benny Keys, as I said, 37 touches, 21 kicks, 16 handballs, 9 marks, 2 tackles, 3 clearances, metres gained 355. He had 4 inside 50s, 6 score involvements, 5 intercepts, went at 81%, as I mentioned, 12 contested possessions, 24 uncontested possessions. We'll do our votes shortly, but for mine, our best player.
Yep, no argument for me.
Brodie Smith had 30 touches. Snuck under the radar a bit, that one. I didn't realise he had so many. 16 kicks, 14 handballs, 6 marks, 1 tackle. Metres gained 559, which is what we need to get from Brodie. Had 6 inside 50s, 4 score involvements, 6 intercepts, 73.3%. Disposal efficiency, 10 contested possessions in all of that. Was a pretty solid game again by Brodie Smith, I thought.
In our top 3 for me, yep.
Mr. Crouch, 29 touches, 13 and 16, 5 marks, 5 tackles, 3 clearances, 158 metres gained. Had 2 inside 50s. 5 score involvements, 2 intercepts, 65.5% disposal efficiency with 10 contested possessions. So you can argue there that even as a cold-faced mid, he's not fulfilling his job, really.
Look, I give him this much. He tries as much as he's capable of doing. unfortunately, it's not doing what we need to be done.
I know you got a soft spot for Matt Crouch, and I certainly do not have the same level of negativity towards Matt that I did towards Brad. But if he's going to be that frontline mid, he needs to get more contested possessions, and he needs to hurt more.
I don't have a soft spot for him. I just think that he tries very hard, but the output doesn't match the input.
I think everyone tries hard. Well,
a lot of people.
I'll qualify that. Yeah, Geordie Dawson, 28 touches, 21 kicks, 7 handballs, which is a good kick to handball ratio from Geordie. That's what we want. 11 marks across the back line there, which was excellent. 1 tackle, 556 metres gained, which is what you want. Spent a lot of time on ground, 91% time on ground. Had 5 inside 50s, had 5 score assists, 5 intercepts, 71.4, 3 contested possessions, so it's very much on the outside, which is where we want him. Really promising, I thought, from Jordan Dawson.
Totally different level of players for the rest of our team.
Yep.
Quality.
Professional, exactly. Good disposal, good skills, good temperament, calm under pressure, has been well coached. Rory Sloane, 22 disposals, 11 kicks, 11 handballs, 5 marks, 3 tackles, 6 clearances, 197 metres games, only spent 65% time on ground. Obviously, it's been a bit off at the end there. Had 3 inside 50s, 2 centre clearances, 5 score involvements, 3 intercepts, 68.2% disposal efficiency, and 13 contested possessions. Unfortunately, they're good numbers, except that that's not how we need him to play. We've already got one of those blokes. They either rotate Matt and Rory or just get Rory out of there, because at least Rory can play another position.
I'd get Rory out there, yeah.
Well, that's what I'd do. Yeah. Josh Rochelle, 20 disposals, 9 kicks, 11 handballs, 4 marks, 1 tackle, 2 clearances, 235 metres gained. Now, this lad, he's a first-year player. He's 18 years old, spends 89% time on ground. Now, I know that he's playing up forward, but he spent a bit of time in the last quarter in the midfield. 89% time on ground is pretty good effort. 2 inside 50s, 6 score involvements, 2 intercepts, 1 tackle inside 50, 8 contested possessions, and of course, hit the scoreboard as well. I think it's clear already the sort of player that we've got on our hands there.
Well, we finally have selected an A-grade player with our first-round pick. He's very, very good. He's class. He's classy. Yep. And he will be. I don't quite agree with Nicky talking about starting him in the midfield now, but I would use him in little bursts in the midfield now, and he will ultimately become a regular in there, Nicky.
Now, as we're sorry to cut you off there, as we do in our live streams, we have a live studio audience, and Mick has had his hand up for ages, so I'll take this chance to get you on board. Mick, how you going?
Yeah, good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, mate, loud and clear. Yep. How you going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Just got a issue with the assessment of Matt Crouch. I think people are realising he lost all of last year. Didn't play all that much the year before. And anybody else that comes back after a year off is usually given 3 or 4 games to get up to speed. I think that you should be given a little bit of slack. I mean, in 4 or 5 games, if he's not getting the metres gained and doing what he should be, well then, you can start getting into him. But between now and then, I think we can just let him get on to the speed of the game. But on the Sloane, he needs to get out of there for sure. And one last thing, Himmelberg's got to go.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that one. Yeah. But the only thing, that's a fair comment, Mick, about Crouchy. What I would say is, why is he getting picked? I mean, it's not his fault he's getting picked. But if he needs to get some miles in his legs, and I don't disagree that might be the case, why pick him? I mean, we did the same with Miller last week, and that was a mistake.
Well, as you said, he didn't pick himself.
No. Yeah, that's not a slight on Matt at all. It's a commentary on the match committee. The whole rebuild as we're supposed to be doing. How we're letting 3 of our players, or say 4, get the 95% of the centre bounces is just ridiculous. Like, how are we ever going to rebuild like that? Has got me stuffed.
And that's my problem, Mick, is that I understand, yes, he's come back from, missing an entire year and also not playing so much the year before. But we do have his form prior to that, and his form prior to that is pretty similar to what we're seeing now. And the AFL has moved past that. AFL midfield is a quality AFL midfield.
If we could get the 2017 Matt Crouch back, I think we'd have a... get Sloan out of there, get the 2000. I mean, we haven't really. Yeah, maybe we don't.
No, I'll disagree with you, because the midfield since 2017, 3 years ago, those midfields don't work that way anymore.
How about not last year, the year before, after he was dropped, and then he come back and he was actually tackling, and I think he was played pretty well then.
No, we don't want a midfielder who tackles.
Well, no, Nikki, that's not true. That's not true.
No, we do. Okay,
that's not true.
Can I just finish, please? I don't. If that's all you're like, yeah, great. He tackles, but we need to have quality disposal, and we need speed.
And you need someone in and
under. We don't have either of those.
The right ones too, Nikki. You can't. Not everyone can do that. You've got to have one in and under.
Yes, but he's our prime. If he's our prime midfielder, he should. That's not the role of our prime midfielder. It should be a Cripps. It should be a Petrarca. We don't have one of those, because Matt Crouch gets picked, and he's supposedly our number 1 midfielder. He's not our number 1 midfielder. He's a quality AFL player.
Well, no, hang on.
He's not our number 1 midfielder.
Hang on,
number 1.
Hang on, Nikki. If you, on the one hand, you're saying he's a quality AFL midfielder, and on the other hand, you're saying he shouldn't be in there. The simple fact is that Matt Crouch at his best is good enough to be in our rotation. The problem is that he's surrounded by similar players. Rory Sloane, Rory Laird, when he's fit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've said before, I don't mind Matt being the coal-faced mid. I think he needs to be more dynamic in the midfield. But I think Mick raises a really good point about his fitness, because he has been out. It was a surprise to me that he was, in some ways, it was a surprise to me that he was picked round 1, because, as I said, we had other players that had been played all last year, like Sam Berry, that are a similar, grunt player that could have started there. So, Mick, I think there's a place for Matt Crouch. It's more about the makeup of that rotation rather than him as an individual.
I agree with that totally, and I seem to think that if give Rob a couple more weeks, but if he's not starting to learn to tap it in the right directions, I think we've got to give Strawny a go. And one more thing before I jump off, Fiend.
Yeah.
Where's my prize for winning the tipping comp a few years ago?
Hello.
What, the footy?
Was
that year?
Oh, yeah, that was me.
But both those footies went.
No, the year after. The first year they had a sign. Yeah, the year after I won the footing comp, he said, "Oh, you'll get a prize to me." I've never heard from you since.
Plead dementia. Plead dementia.
Plead dementia.
No. Because I've got to say, because Mick, you're Mick from Patreon, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Mick, I would say, and I don't want to embarrass you, Mick, but Mick's probably our number 1 supporter. And I really appreciate it. Mick's been on Patreon with us
was the
since
first
I reckon since I started Patreon. Yeah, exactly right.
You poor sucker.
And he's just been sitting there patiently waiting for us to be on. Mick, I tell you, no, hang on a minute. I actually sent you an email asking if you wanted a Guernsey, and you never got back to me.
Yeah, well, I hardly ever check my emails. That's probably why.
Yeah, there you go. So there you go, and I can put it up on screen if I need to. Oh dear! No. Look, mate, I'll hook it. All jokes aside, your support has been amazing, mate, and I really appreciate it. And it's fantastic that you finally come on the show. Really good.
Oh, it's the second time I've been on.
Oh yeah, but the first time was ages ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, last season, I think.
And I've got to say, Mick, you made your case very, very well, mate. I'm with you.
All right, then. I'll jump off. Thank you.
Good on you, mate.
See ya.
See ya.
See ya.
If anyone else wants to have a chat and have good comments like that, I love the fact that we can get our listeners on. It's fantastic. It really is.
Mick was good because he made a lot of sense. He really did.
Made a lot of sense. Absolutely. So, yeah, that's what we want.
Unlike us.
Healthy debate. Hey, don't lump me in with you, Nick. You're on your own.
It's our charm, remember? It's our charm.
Now, Harry S., 20-odd touches, only the 9 kicks. He just seems to be lacking confidence with disposal at the moment.
I'll tell you what, he's disposal. I've always thought in previous years he wasn't too bad with his disposal, but his disposal this year is disgraceful. He just burns the ball so badly this year.
Well, one of the great things about him. Sorry, go on, Nick.
Yeah, I was just going to say, does it look like he's trying too hard?
Probably.
Well, one of the great things about Harry last year that we all noticed was how he was able to put the ball to the advantage of his teammates so regularly. And that just seems to have gone missing. But, young player, he's got to work through it. And the last thing I want to see is him getting turfed out of the rotations and turfed out of the team. That's exactly what we need to expect and tolerate from young players. And he'll work through it. He's a quality kid.
Yeah. And
he'll work through it. So, that's what we've got to... I've got no problem with a young lad having to work through an issue like that. Now, we've got 19...
Interesting point there for Surface in the chat is he said Harry looks like he doesn't know where he fits in with Crouch back.
It's quite possible. The one thing that I will say is that the midfield doesn't look cohesive. Whether that's a factor or not, I'm not sure. Now we've got our good friend 1990 on. Mate, how you going?
I'm going well, thanks guys. Good evening. Just a couple of things. I'll be quick tonight. First one was that I think we kind of looks like we might have overperformed last year. If you remember, there's quite a few games where we won by not many points, and I think probably on form we were probably quite pleased to win those games, and on paper we probably didn't have the cattle to consistently win those games. And I think we're seeing probably a better, true reflection of where we're at right now. So I think going forward, we're going to have to spend a couple of years on getting the best midfielders we can at the draft and building around them.
I don't think anybody can argue against that 1990, but NT Rabbit out there makes an excellent point in the fact that in 2021 we had Walker, Laird and Seedsman all burning and carrying us, and none of those three are in the team. And if you look, Seedsman is a midfielder out wide, Laird is a midfielder in the guts, and Walker is the centre half forward, full forward type up forward. So they're key players, and which means that the quality of the ball coming into the forward line in firstly is probably down, and then secondly, on top of that, the quality of the player there is definitely down. So we are performing well below last year, but just maybe, when those three come back, we might get somewhere near where we were towards the end of last year.
I just personally don't see it. I see the teams that finished down below last year have leapfrogged us, like Collingwood, who've gone well past us, North Melbourne, who have drafted and traded and I imagine if we played them next week, they would beat us. Gold Coast have gone well ahead. I think we've really dropped away, and I think it's going to be a tough season.
Are you predicting us to finish 18th?
I think we will finish last quite easily.
I have a horrible feeling you could be right, but I hope you're not.
The most exciting thing that happened on the weekend, I actually went to the game, was the beginning of the second corner when the emergency sirens went off and went to the exits and got quite excited that I wouldn't have to watch the rest of the game.
Beep, beep, and the whoop, whoop, and the whoop, 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 the whoop, whoop went. So everybody had to leave.
Well, when that fire alarm went off, I thought it was because one of the umpires' whistles had gotten so hot from all the times they blew it that it had just caught on fire. But that apparently wasn't the case.
Playing, to be honest.
Anyway, we're not burning the umpires. Thank you, mate. Good to hear your dulcet tones as usual. And don't forget, anyone else who'd like to join in the chat, we've probably got another 10 minutes to go. So if you want to hop on and have your say, feel free, please. Just a couple more. I won't run through them all. Lockie Shoal, I thought, followed up last week with a decent effort. I thought Tom Didé was all right down back. I thought Mitch Hinge was all right down back. I thought Braden Cook was okay in patches. And I also thought that Geordie Butts played really well. But there are a couple of things I just want to talk about.
I was just going to say, I mean, most people wouldn't have thought of like matching Butts up on Elliott, but I actually thought that was quite a good matchup for Elliott, and he didn't kind of burn us too much when normally a player of his calibre normally would.
Yeah, Geordie's just having a really good start to the season again. I thought he played really well. All right, let's talk about a couple. Now, I've been on the bus and off the bus and then back on the bus, and I'm now permanently off the Elliott Himmelberg bus. What I saw on the weekend was just subpar. And I know that Elliott can play better, but I've come to the conclusion that his better is still not good enough.
I will state clearly I have never been on the Himmelberg bus because he's just not bloody good enough. He just can't clunk a mark when he should clunk a mark. If he flukes one now and again, he won't kick the goal. He'll hook it or slice it or whatever. He's just not he's not an AFL player.
Vardy says his confidence down. I don't think it's confidence at all, Vardy. You don't have to be confident to run hard. There's plenty of examples of players that are down on form. I think it was Scott Pendlebury last week was struggling in his match and just rolled his sleeves up. And got involved. And Elliott trails the contest too often. He dropped at least 3 marks that he should have taken. His hands aren't strong enough. I'm not saying that Billy's the answer because I don't think he is. But unfortunately, as much as I think someone like Elliott can work in a team if he provides a contest, Elliott just doesn't provide a contest often enough. And I'm off.
Yep, agree. And you know that I've liked...
Well, you're Mrs. Himmelberg, so if you're off, that's the end of it.
I know, according to Macca, I am.
Yeah,
so exactly. I think I'm actually old enough to be his mother.
That's what I was suggesting.
You're still Mrs. Himmelberg.
Yeah, but the thing is that we saw those flashes of what he could be, but you're right, Fane. It's in and out, and it's not when it should be. When he needs to, as you said, roll the sleeves up and get to work and make things work for him. That's what a good forward will do. If things aren't going your way, you work at it and you work at it till it. Yeah. Hopefully, it does go your way.
Yeah. And he doesn't run. He lumbers. He doesn't run.
He is a lumberer. He is a lumberer. And the thing that finally occurred to me, Mac, is that he's no better than Josh Jenkins. In fact, he's not as good as Josh Jenkins. And I was never a Josh Jenkins fan, so how the hell could I possibly support Elliott Himmelberg? And look, he's a big fella, they take time, etc., 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 but I don't see enough qualities in Elliott. He doesn't kick goals when he gets the opportunity. He doesn't take marks when he gets the opportunity. He doesn't make enough contests. It's a long way to come back from in your 4th or 5th year on a list, don't you think?
I think he's about his 6th year, I think.
Yeah. So I think, unfortunately for Elliott, I just don't see how they persevere with him. Which then leads me to the other perennial one, and I'm interested to know people's thoughts about Fogarty's game on the weekend.
Oh, I thought it still doesn't do enough. It doesn't do enough. He's actually probably had a few more attempts or efforts than he does normally, but no, we need a lot more out of him. And he needs somebody else alongside him so that he's not the main man. I mean, we had Himmelberg there, but between the two of them, there's nothing happening there. And I wasn't happy with either of them, to be honest.
Nick?
Although, in fairness to Frog, I thought he got twice. I think he got pinged for a push when all it was they were jostling and he was the stronger player.
Well, the first one in the first quarter was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hate him and they hate McHenry. And I actually... It was a tough one on Fogg. So Berg was definitely no. Fogg I'm kind of half and half on because at times it was what's going on there, but other times when there were a couple of goals that we got it was great hustle and run from him, just putting that pressure on over, and it was also with our other forwards, which we then kind of got to turn over the ball, and we did get some goals out of it. I did, and I think the contrast with Himmelberg is Gallant came in, and even though he didn't clunk any marks, there was more crashing of the packs, and there was more movement, and there was more stuff going on with Gallant.
Well, Lockie will
get the ball when he was there.
Yeah, Lockie will never die wondering when it comes to an aerial contest. That's what I love about him.
And the other forwards need to understand that and just let him go and they stay down. Because at one stage we had all three go up, and it's like, you lot didn't talk, did you?
Yeah. Look, I wasn't unhappy with Fogg's game. I thought he had limited opportunities. Yes, there are times, there's always times where you want Fogarty to do more, but I just think our forward movement was diabolical. And when you're just kicking up and down lines or switching slowly from one side of the ground to the other, rarely did we come through the corridor at pace. It doesn't allow a forward to get much separation on a lead. So the reason why I ask is because I'm just wondering what the best makeup of our forward line is, given that I don't think Elliott is it. I think in long term, obviously, Riley comes in, but I don't think Riley comes straight back in for Himmelberg. Is there a case to be made for playing a little smaller? Is there a case for Nick Murray to go forward and Billy to go down back, Macca? Because Nick Murray is another one who will attack the ball in the air.
Well, he's a nice forward.
Well, it's worthy of an experiment. But personally, I would be bringing out Himmelberg and Philthorpe in as the second relieving ruckman as well. I just think we've got to put some faith in Philthorpe. And I'm not surprised he got dropped because I thought he didn't show enough intensity the week before. And I think dropping him for 1 week was just letting him know you don't get in just by turning up.
I don't think you can do that with a kid, mate.
Well, I would have done it, and they did it. But I also wouldn't leave him to rot down in there either. I'd still let him know I still loved him, and I'll bring him back, and I expect him to.
He got like 2 touches and didn't score. That's a David McKay turnaround.
I know, that's the problem.
You can't pick him if he hasn't performed. You can't drop him to SANFL and say perform, and then pick him the next week because the bloke that we left in actually was a worse option. I think we need an alternative. We're a couple of weeks away from getting Tex back. I think Lockie Gallant needs a run of games. I'd be very tempted to try either Fisher Mackesy at centre half forward, or chuck Nick Murray down there and bring Billy down back.
Well, one thing, if you put Frampton down back and you put Murray up forward, Murray will try his guts out.
He's also got a nice lead and a nice mark on him, and he's a good kick. And because he's that odd size, it makes defences not sure what type of defender to put on him.
I mean, we have problems at the moment. We don't have enough goal scoring targets.
No, we don't.
So and we cannot persevere with Elliott anymore. I think whether they do or not, I would not agree with him continuing to be picked, because I just don't think he's the answer, and I think we need to move on and find a different answer. So we got Tomo in the studio audience, so we'll just bring Tomo in quickly while we're talking about this. How you going, mate?
Evening. Good, thank you. How's everyone?
Very good.
Tomo?
It's a bit off topic, but my opinion is, do we think we're going about the rebuild in the right way? You look at teams like Collingwood, Hawthorn, they've got a very good mix of experienced players and kids coming through, even Sydney. And I feel like we might have sold the ship too early on getting rid of a lot of our experienced players to help, mainly with leadership. I think we're going to miss a lot of, despite him having his ups and downs, I think we're going to miss D-Mac's leadership behind the scenes a little bit. He was well liked with a lot of the young players and all that. And same with Lynch. I feel like we're too young, I think.
I think you're right. You're right.
It's a big one. I don't think we have a good mix at all. And I think this is going to be a very long rebuild.
Well, it's going to be a very long rebuild, because you're quite right. Normally, when you do a rebuild, you have a skeleton there of senior players, and then you've got the junior players coming around them, and at least they've got some experience and guidance coming to them from the senior players. But we haven't really got many senior players, and some of the ones that we've kept aren't firing very well anyhow. But no, we just have that shortage, and Fiend pointed out before, we just got that big gap in that 24, 27 age group. We just don't have anybody there. And probably, Lynch, I think, was a little bit unlucky to go. But then again, we can always argue, if we kept him, you're going to keep another young kid out. So I think we've done it, and we've got rid of him, and now we're going to have to wear it. But it's just going to mean we have to take a lot longer to get there.
Yeah, that was just... Yep, sorry.
No, I was just going to mention, Tomo, back in 2014 to 2017, we hung on to a lot of players that even back then were showing signs of falling off the cliff. Richie Douglas was retained for probably 2 seasons without really performing. And there were 1 or 2 others. And, if we'd have recruited a decent midfielder back in 2016, for example, they'd be in their 6th season now and right in that sweet spot. And that's the age group of player that you want supporting these younger lads coming through, not someone who's 32 and struggling. So I think a lot of it is due to the fact that we were gunning for a flag back in that period of time, and we were basically all in for that. And we backed the squad that we had, rightly or wrongly. I'm on record as saying that I felt that we should have got rid of a few players back then. But as a result, when that all went pear-shaped in 2017, we all know how quickly we fell off a cliff. So, they played the wrong hand, unfortunately, and here we are. And, whether we're going about it the right way or the wrong way, we've got players on the list now that have been on the list for 3 or 4 years. If they were the right players, they'd be doing well. Half of them are playing state league now. So maybe it's recruiting.
How do we feel about recruiting more out of the SANFL? Because I think Jack Haynes and, as mentioned previously, I don't remember a mature age SANFL pickup being typically bad at AFL level. Do we just keep going with drafting young kids, or do you reckon we go out and get, for example, a 24-year-old from the SANFL for a position that we need?
Well, here's a question for you, Tomo. As good as Paddy Parnell is, we had an opportunity to pick someone up, a mature age player up in the mid-year draft last year, and we picked another midget.
Yeah.
Right. Now, that to me, that's just poor list management, pure and simple. And that's nothing against Paddy Parnell because he's a good little player. But why in the hell did we pick up another little midget?
Yeah, it could be said about this draft as well with the midfielders we drafted.
Yeah, but there's a difference between drafting new talent, new kids. I'm talking about that mid-season draft where we had the opportunity to take anyone we wanted, right? And there was exposed form in all the state leagues, exposed form in the SANFL and the VFL and all the rest of it. And we pick up some kid out of New South Wales who's 2'8". You know, when we've already got a mosquito fleet. It's nothing against Patrick Parnell, but was he really the type of player that we needed in that circumstance?
Yeah.
No.
So, you know, the list management and to a lesser degree, I think drafting has really contributed to us being in this situation, I think.
No, there's no question about that. And I think that really was Tomo's point to some degree as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't hit a draft, I think, since Miller and Dudes, and even then it's been pretty dire.
Yeah. I think Rochelle, Saligo, Taylor, and even Nankervis might prove to be a good draft. But gee whiz, long time coming. Anyway, mate, thanks for your input. I'll shuffle you back to the crowd.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, see ya.
Thanks.
We've got time for one more if anyone else wants to have a say. We need to do our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1s. Now, let me see. Have I got this up? I think I've got this up. One moment, please. Here we are. So last week, as a consequence of last week, we had our votes. We had Rochelle on 13, Rowe on 10 with Shoal, Keys on 6, Smith on 4, Dawson and Murray 1 each. Now the listeners, their votes went Rochelle, Keys, Rose, Shoal, Dawson, Crouch, Smith, McHenry. So slightly different, a bit more love for Keys than we showed, and a couple of others in there. So
I went for Keys as my number one.
Yeah, no, good luck to you. You were the only one. So what about I'll go around the table again. Nikki, you can start 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for this week. Hello, Nikki.
Nikki.
Oh, sorry. Do you want me to start at the 5 or start at the 1?
Whatever you like.
Well, just for Macca, I'll start at the 5. And Keys.
Right.
Then I had... This is kind of where it gets fun. So I went with Dawson.
Right.
Then Rochelle. Smith. And I'm having trouble splitting the last one. Because it's a toss-up between Rowe and Cook. Because whilst Rowe missed those goals that we needed, I really liked a lot of the stuff he did around the ground and the movement up forward. But we also saw some really nice stuff from Cook. But I'll give it to Cook just because, Rowe, you needed to kick those goals.
Macca?
Well, not too much different from Nikki. 5 for Keys.
Yep.
4 for Dawson.
Yep.
3 for Smith.
Yep.
And then it sort of can become a little bit of a raffle after that. And then looking at names like Cook, Bude, Hinge, Rowe, Shoal, Rochelle. And in the end, I'm going to give Jimmy Rowe 2. And I'm going to give Rochelle 1.
Okay. Well, I've gone Benny Keys for 5. Thought he was a standout. Brody Smith for 4. Geordie Butts for 3, because, defence is a thing too. Josh Rochelle for 2. And Tom Duday for 1.
So no Dawson in your best 5?
Nope.
Okay. It's all a matter of opinion. Always is.
Correct. So there have been some people that have put their votes in already. But if you want to put your votes in, just chuck them in the best and fairest channel if you can, because it's easier to find then. But I'll dig them out regardless, and we'll put the tally up next week. All right, I think that's done for the game. We've got the showdown obviously next week, which is going to be an interesting one because neither team is playing in any good form. Both teams have got a few injuries and a lot of question marks about their scoring power. So it could be a very interesting game. Thoughts, Nick?
I'm just hoping. Sorry.
I just think it's quite amusing the fact of, if you actually look at the matches, they've put 2 games on the Friday now. So you've actually got Melbourne and Essendon starting an hour before our game, because it's like, do they actually think that people would rather watch that than Port and Crows?
Yeah, it was a tokenism for us.
So who do you think is going to win? Nikki?
Oh, God, it's hard because they're both deplorable. I think this is probably our chance to beat Port, because they've been decimated a bit more by injury. But I think they actually move the ball a bit better than what we do. But I'm gonna, fingers crossed, hopefully us.
Macca?
No, I don't give us any chance at all. Even though Port played so badly, I think that they've got a lot more better players than we have overall. So if they come out and play just as they should play, I'd say they'd beat us by about 5 goals.
Right. I'd like to tip us to bounce back, but it's actually selection that makes me stop. I don't think there's huge problems with players' endeavour collectively. I think our endeavour's been pretty good. Our intensity has overall, I think, been pretty good. Certainly not consistent enough, but there's been enough there to show that the players are invested. But I think they're getting hamstrung by selection, and I just don't see that philosophy changing because I just don't understand what the logic is in the first place. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Port Adelaide on this one, as much as I don't want to.
Margin, please?
Oh, probably 4 goals, I'd say. I don't think it'll be a shellacking because what I saw on the weekend of Port, they're not that good either. And they're certainly not capable of kicking a lot of goals.
Well, if they played like they did on the weekend, they wouldn't beat anybody, but I can't see them playing like that again. So that's why. And we just don't quite have at this stage the cattle, I think.
All right. Quick cockwomble to finish us off, Nick.
So I did ask for some other people, and somebody actually reminded me of something that happened during the Crows and the Collingwood game, which is Nathan Buckley actually defending players ducking into a tackle.
Yes,
so
that's the rules, Nikki, apparently.
Oh, except it's not. But you got to love the fact that there's a coach who's only just 1 year out of the game and actually doesn't understand what the rules actually are, which is good. But I do think it kind of has to go to either the AFL or the ground management at Sydney, on Friday night, because that was a farce. I mean, it was great, vision and everything else, but there are some sides to it that not so good. The fact that you actually had 3 Swans players standing in the little kiddie section under the other ground and actually had to go outside the ground and walk around and come back in the gate. The fact that they didn't have enough security there, that I don't think they were ever going to stop them anyhow. But the fact that they kept playing the music whilst people were out there and turned it into a whole, hey, it's a bit of a concert now, instead of just turning it off and actually start announcing.
Apparently
early on,
set up a picnic blanket on the wing or something or other while all that shit was going on.
Did you see the bit about Zach Tui where the guy who actually bashed into him, dropped his car keys, so Tui actually picked him up and chased after the bloke to give it to him? I mean, it was actually quite dangerous for the players. There's a whole lot of duty of care and everything else that I
was going to say, massive liability issues if someone got hurt.
Oh. And then there was like the commentators, it's great, the crowd and everything else. I think Buddy actually did the best that he could do in that situation, was smile and not and kind of celebrate with him. And I mean, it was great and all that, but I think at some stage you could kind of see his face a little bit just going, how do I get out of here? He's trying to get out of there.
Yeah. If you don't hurry up, then you're going to get a nomination, because I did say quick cock.
Yeah, so I just think they kind of suspected this might have happened. The fact that they didn't have enough staff on there, that they didn't handle actually getting the players back on the ground properly and everything else. Not this, we're going to have a 15-minute delay. It was just ridiculous from start to finish. I mean, fabulous for Buddy. Great moment. Sydney played well. Everything else, the guy that actually marked the ball, well done, dude.
Quick cockwomble.
Yep, all of them.
Right. I reckon the bloke that burnt the bloody dim sim deserves one at the MCG. But anyway, it's your reward. So we'll go with the SCG, because I'm amazed that no one got hurt out of that. All right, now this week, of course, being a home week, a home game, we will have our double general admission passes to give away on Tuesday night. So make sure you listen in on Tuesday night if you're looking for a double general admission pass to get to the Showdown. It should be a good time, and probably get some seating, I reckon, considering both teams are on the nose at the moment. It's our home game.
And there's also a prelim final on Saturday.
I was just about to say, the Crows come up against Fremantle in the Women's League, a massive game. Obviously, we would start very warm favourites, I think, in that one. And I reckon the week or two off might have just helped a couple of our girls just get up. Erin has been a bit sore, and a couple of others have been a bit sore. So I reckon we're a shoo-in, Nikki, for the women's. Shoo-in.
I don't think we're a shoo-in, because Fremantle are a bloody good side, but I think the rest actually will help us, particularly not just with Erin, but with Hatchard, who's been suffering from plantar fasciitis in her foot. I just kind of predict that this it may not go well for Freo.
I think the club has been very clever by making it free to go to the game, so to ensure that there's a big crowd there to support the girls.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, well, look, thanks everyone who's joined us at another marathon weekend wrap, and we'll have to have another post-production meeting to try and sort that shit out. But look, thanks for everyone who joined us on the studio audience, fantastic. Everyone who joined us on YouTube, fantastic, and in Discord on the chat, fantastic. Don't forget you can support us on Patreon like Mick, and you might get a bloody bit of merch. I did send him an email, and he never responded. So that's my defence, and I'm sticking to it. But we'll sort Mick out. He's been fantastic, and look, we do appreciate all the people who've supported us on Patreon and other means over the course of the years, and certainly this year still your support is humbly appreciated. So until Tuesday night, Macca and Nikki, I'll bid you farewell.
Good night, all.
Night,
Good night,
all. Have
everyone.
a good night on Tuesday.